before I go into the subject of today, I'll spend just about 30 seconds or a minute to talk about, a little bit about A.Y.E as an organization and about president. You know, one of the and and I want us to look at everything I say today and say that the most important thing that we must have as entrepreneurs is grit and courage. And President Sumi Smith Francis carries that like 200%, like I've never seen before. And I tell you, no matter how fantastic your idea is, how brilliant you are, how lofty your ideas are, if we don't have grit and courage, I tell you, we will not be able to do anything. And I want to appreciate, the president for his courage and consistency over the years, never dropping the bar for excellence. Right? Thank you so much, sir. I also want to appreciate everyone who makes it to this assembly. Like President said, 52 times a year, which is fantastic for us to build our continent. I want to appreciate you guys and say thank you for listening to me today. So, going into what we're talking about, the title for today, I don't know whether the graphics has been displayed, is Methods, Market, and Messaging. And I want us to open our mind a little bit because some of the things that I'll be sharing with us comes from the urgent need of our continent. We need very dynamic and highly intellectual entrepreneurs to build Africa, to build Nigeria. If you look at Nigeria, Africa, Egypt, everything right now, what is happening right now is that Africa is industrializing, right? We're figuring out our own energy for the first time in many, many years. And so with that, what it means is that today or in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a very unique opportunity for every one of us to now begin to build real products, right? To build in ways that were never possible before. I can tell you that in the next 5, 10 years, Africa as a continent will figure out energy. And if we do that with energy, anything is possible. And we all know that. Only energy will unlock enormous potentials for us. Now, beyond the infrastructure that is critical, the question for you and I is now to say, okay, if this infrastructure, this critical infrastructure for development is coming up, how can I as an entrepreneur leverage this infrastructure and build something that is big? And when I say something big, it is something that can help people other than yourself, something that can help people other than your immediate environment. How can I build products that can shape people's lives in hundreds of thousands, in millions, within the continent and outside the continent? And so this framework I'm going to be sharing with us today sort of open our hearts and our minds to new ways that we can make this possible. And this is actually a book that I've written, right? I wrote the book, but I've not had the time to figure out the publishing, right? I'm too busy for that at the moment. But I'm excited that I can bring this concept to you because it's not out there yet, and I can bring it to my brothers and sisters, and we can leverage it and look at it and pick one or two things and build great companies that can last. I've done this studying companies, Fortune 500 companies like Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, Google, right? The brightest companies and even small companies that have done very well. And so I'll speak about the concept, methods, markets, and messaging. Now, before I go into the detail, I want you to understand something. You see, there are two ways you can improve what you do as an entrepreneur. Number one is either you do what you do really well, so you improve what you're doing, or the second way is to improve how you see what you're doing. Is to improve how you think about what you're doing. Two ways. So it's either you really improve what you're doing. So let's say, for instance, you're creating a product. Okay, let's say you're creating an apple juice. You can keep improving, the flavor. It's called incremental improvement. Okay, and refine the product and make it better and better and better. But you see, the thing with incremental improvement is that it has limits, right? That you cannot really push when it gets to a point. So the next thing you want to do is, if you don't improve what you're doing, or if you don't want to go that direction, how can you change the way you see what you're doing? So when you change the way you see what you're doing, and that becomes powerful. And that is where real power is. Now, the thing with many of us entrepreneurs is we often believe in improving what we're doing. And that's good. You should improve what you're doing, improve your branding, improve your appearance, improve the product value, rebrand the product, reduce the price, create a new marketing campaign and a new marketing strategy. All of that is good. But how about you change how you see what you're doing. Now, to put this in context, look at Tesla, for example. Everyone looks at Tesla and says, oh, Tesla is a fantastic electric vehicle. In fact, most people look at Tesla as a luxury electric vehicle, and that's the end of it. But if you look at Tesla like that, you miss out. Because if you look at the value of Tesla on the stock market, it's gigantic. And the reason is because Tesla is the only technology. So Tesla is not even a car company. It's actually a technology company. So what Tesla has is that Tesla has the maps for autonomous driving. Okay. And so what that means is that Tesla can sell the technology of that maps to other autonomous vehicles. So it has the largest library of maps, more like what you have in Google Maps, but the kind of maps that autonomous vehicles will use, which means that that technology itself is even more valuable than their cars. And so if you think about it that way, in fact, the first time I looked at it and then I saw this research, what I had to do was buy a little Tesla stock and say, wow, this is a very valuable company, because beyond what it's doing in terms of cars, there's actually an hidden business model that nobody knows about. And so what I will be sharing with us today is how you can build a business model that it will be impossible for competitors to see you coming until you have arrived. And that is a very unique advantage that we must have as an entrepreneur, where your business model, people look at what you're doing on the surface, but they really don't understand where you're going. Until you arrive, what is this, what this guy was building? Now, let me give you another classic example. Let's look at Amazon, for instance. And I really want to open our minds to this perspective before going into the detail, because if I go into the details first and then come back to start telling you this, some of you will not you may not be able to put everything together immediately. So let's look at Amazon, for instance. Amazon is an e-commerce business. It started as an e-commerce business. Let's sell stuff online. But see what happened. Because they needed to sell stuff online, Amazon had to build email service, which is called simple email service, SES. Okay? And then, because of course, if you buy something online, they need to send you an email. So they built that service. They needed to send you an SMS. So they built SNS, simple SMS service. Okay? Now, because obviously they needed servers to host their application online, they built what is called the EC2, okay, which is cloud hosting infrastructure. And so because they needed to store data, store the pictures, store different things that you upload when you're trying to sell a product on Amazon, then Amazon had to build the cloud storage. They had to build their storage system. Okay, there's a name for it. Now, Amazon kept building these different services, right, to power their e-commerce business, to power Amazon as a platform. Now, from the outside, everybody looked at it and said, well, this is an e-commerce business. But guess what happened? When the business model changed and cloud became a thing, where companies had to host their software on the cloud, and cloud became a big business, Amazon, which was an e-commerce business, right, all of a sudden dominated the cloud market, even ahead of Google and Microsoft. So they beat Google and Microsoft. And these are core technology guys. Everybody knows that Microsoft is a technology company. Everybody knows that Google is a technology company. But Google and Microsoft never saw Amazon coming. They didn't even believe it. So all of a sudden, Amazon just took all of these services and put it on the cloud and then sold it out to every startup, right, who want to build. And that's why they're dominating that market. They have the largest market share in cloud infrastructure today. Okay, so they were able to build these services, right, in a way that no one saw them coming until they took over that market. Now, what I'm going to share with you today will help you to do something. It will help you to build competence for unknown capabilities. Now, I want you to write that down, which is really critical. You see, when you build a company, what you're building is not just a profit-generating business. No. What you're building is you're building competence and capacity. And sometimes the capacity you're building is for something that is unknown, which means that you naturally have the power to shape the future, and which means that you naturally have power to restructure markets. Okay? Let me give you an instance. When Amazon was building Amazon Kindle, what they were building was a library that couldn't exist in any other way, where you can just go and find books. Okay, and so with Amazon Kindle, Amazon has been able to create a library, right, that could not exist in any other way. Now, in that process, they built many stuff, right? They built a lot of stuff. They built many competencies. They hired different people to begin to have the capacity to build that kind of library. Now, see what happened. Amazon now became the new negotiator for publishers. And so there was a time when Amazon had to fight the publishers war, where publishers realized that they had lost all the power. Guess what? The same publishers were the people that empowered Amazon to have those, assets as books. But what happened is, with the competence that Amazon had built, Amazon now had the negotiating power over those publishers. So when you're building a company, and it's not just a technology company, right? If you think about Coca-Cola, for instance, what Coca-Cola does, the core business of Coca-Cola is not even Coke. The core business of Coca-Cola as a company is to satisfy taste, right? Thirst. When people are thirsty, they need something to drink. And so Coca-Cola just leverage on the understanding of how to create carbonated soft drinks, and then they create Fanta and create different soft drink, and just dominates that market. And so understanding and thinking like this help you to build organizations, right, that are enduring. And when I mean enduring is organizations that just don't die after you exit the business. Organizations that can last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and are very dynamic, that they are able to beat any market situation, which is where you can see the likes of Amazon, the likes of Google, Netflix today. So now, what is methods, markets, and messaging? Let's start with methods, okay? If you look at methods, what's method? Method is simply a way that an entrepreneur has discovered to do things better. That's what method is. A way that an entrepreneur, and write that down as an entrepreneur, a way to do something and do it well, okay? Now let me give you an instance. If you looked at the world before Uber and Bolt, how do you call a taxi, right? You either have to go to the road, wait for a taxi, and then, wave your hand and the taxi will stop. Or if you were coming from an airport, for instance, you go to the taxi park and then you begin to negotiate. Okay. But what Uber did was created a new way for people to order a cab and to order a taxi, where you just bring out an app and you can call a taxi from your app. That is a new way. Now, if you look at that, Uber did not invent the taxi business. The taxi business had existed before Uber. Neither did they invent transportation. What they discovered was a new way. So you as an entrepreneur, how do you discover a new way? The easiest way to discover that is to look at market frictions. So write market frictions, right? How do you discover a new way? Look at market frictions. What is it that people are going through right now that doesn't necessarily make them happy? What are the challenges in getting things done, right? Have that at the back of your mind. This is not about creating a lofty idea or just imagining something where there is no problem. No, look at what people do naturally, what people do normally. Take, for instance, ordering your food, right? What are the frictions in getting that stuff done? How do you buy clothes today? You walk into a boutique, or you walk into a mall, you have to fit the dress, okay? And then after that, if it fits, that's fine. You can pay and walk out, okay? Or you go online, load an app, right? Maybe your ASOS or whatever app you use, and then you order the clothes based on your size. That is a new way, okay? But that new way existed because of new technology. So as an entrepreneur, you must understand when a new technology comes up. You must look at what are the tools that are available to build today, right, that were not available yesterday. Okay, what are the things that make it easy? So if we didn't have mobile phones, many things that we do today would not even be possible. Okay, so mobile phone brought in a new power, right, to the consumer. If you look at the advertising business, Facebook did not create the advertising business. Okay, advertising business had existed before Facebook. But guess what? Think about how difficult it's going to be for all the billboards combined in the world to now become a Facebook, or to build a platform where people can place ads. They lost out in that market. They can't catch up again. And that is what methods, market, and messaging help you do. It helps you to build a competitive advantage that it becomes nearly impossible to catch up with you. Okay, if you look at the grocery business and the supermarket business, Walmart has been in that business before Amazon. But today, Amazon and Walmart are miles apart. You can't even compare them, because Amazon has the unique advantage of technology and of the competence that they have built, right? That Walmart cannot just catch up with it. It's going to take many, many years. And so what method is as an entrepreneur, can you invent a new way for people to get stuff done? So think about it. What are people doing today? And you can look at it in very small forms, but expand it. It doesn't have to be something really big. Let me give you an instance. It can even be, how do people get coffee today? It can be stuff like, how do people load their truck? So if I want to, ship a goods from Lagos to China, how am I doing that? How do people do that today? Okay. And then go and reinvent the wheel on how to make it better. Take, for instance, WhatsApp. Imagine and say, look, how do people make calls today? Okay, you want to call international, and then you have to pay MTN 20,000 naira and then pay 500 naira per minute. That's nonsense. Can't we build an app that connects to the internet and people can call each other for free? Okay, and then we can build a business model around that. Let me give you a classic example. Here we are using Zoom today. Okay, but you know that before Zoom, there's been Yahoo Messenger, and you could make video calls on Yahoo Messenger. Long before Zoom, there's been Skype. And you could really have a Skype call and a video call, quality call. Now, guess what? After Skype came Google Hangouts. Google themselves, reinvented Google Hangout, and then people came on it. They tried to promote it, but it failed. Why did it fail? It's not until when Zoom came up with the idea of why if I want to, make a video call to someone, why do I have to create a Skype account and then, enter my phone number, enter all my details, and then find that person on Skype before I can call that person? That's nonsense. Why can't I just install an app, create the video, share the link, and everybody from anywhere in the world can dial in with that link, which is what has happened on Zoom today. And so Zoom came up with that, just the ability to share a video link and everybody dialed in. So you see, video conferences itself is nothing new. The only thing is that somebody else talked about it differently and said, look, the way to get this job done of video conferences is just nonsense. Why not let us create an app where you can just create a link, share that link to anybody, and people can dial in with that link. Now, Google Meet saw that. The moment Google saw that and said, so this is what these guys did. Oh, this is working. They immediately created Google Meet and discarded Google Hangouts, the same company. But what they figured out is that someone has found a new way to do something better. And so I'm going to ask you today, as an entrepreneur, what is your method? What is the method that you're found? What is the market friction that you've discovered? Look at the business that you're in and ask yourself, what exactly is my core business? And what is my method? As an entrepreneur, if you don't understand your core business, there's a big problem, right? You need to understand the business that you're in. Amazon knew that they weren't just in the business of selling goods and services online. Their core business is actually a technology business. Let me give you an instance. You and I know about this MTN ad. MTN, many years ago, the teleconferencing ad where the one CEO said, can they hear us? Where they had one screen in the conference room, and they had this very interesting conversation. The CEO wanted to organize a conference call, and it was a fantastic technology. It was brilliant. Everyone loved the idea. But guess what? The mistake MTN made was because they were thinking of their core business as a telecommunications business, not as a technology business. So that is why, 2 or 3 years ago, MTN rebranded. They now rebranded to become a technology business, as against being a telecommunication business. So they were trying to solve that problem in an IT way rather than using technology to solve the problem, which is what Zoom and the other guys did. So understand your core business. If you are in a business and you look at your core business and you say, look, in all fairness and truth, this core business is not going to last. Exit that business. Kill that business model. Reinvent yourself. That's who you are as an entrepreneur. You're supposed to evolve. Okay? There was a time I looked at my business, right? And let me give you this example where we were doing digital marketing services. And I said, look, we're a digital marketing agency, but look, this isn't really our core business. Our core business is we create content. So we're typically a content creation agency. And so I repositioned the company from being a social media agency to become an actual content creation business. So we built core competence around all the forms of content. Anything you can think about as content, we built the core competence. And once we did that, we could resell the service and repackage the service in any way, and not just social media marketing agency. So you see, it's not just technology. It's about how you think about what you're doing. If you can change how you see your business, then you can really improve, what you're doing, and you can build a business that is enduring. Okay. So, okay, I have 10 minutes to go. Okay, awesome. So let's look at we've looked at methods. Now let's look at markets. If you look at markets, you need to look at the market and say, how is this market structured today? Okay, let me give you an instance. So if you look at global markets and the way things work, okay, ask yourself, what is your core competence, and what is your core strategy, and what is your core business? Your core business will show you new market opportunity. Look at Netflix, for instance, the video distribution service. Okay, the market, the way it was structured, was a DVD rental service. Okay, Netflix came and made it, a video streaming service. Okay, so they looked at it and said, how can we move this market from being a physical market to become something that you access using the internet? So understanding your market is critical, right, as a business. Let me quickly go into messaging. I will come back to marketing this time. Now, messaging, the way to look at your messaging is in two ways. You need to look at internet, because I think messaging is really, is the law critical for us as entrepreneurs. So you look at messaging in two ways, internal and external. Internal is, how do I coordinate my team, and how do I share the vision with the people that I lead and our stakeholders? If you can do that, that's how you can rally talent around a big idea. Look at your internal communication. Let me give you an instance. Amazon, for instance, Jeff Bezos created what is called the two pizza rule, which is because they were thinking about how can we structure this technology company to move really fast. If we need to build this core competence, then we need to do it ASAP. And so they structured the team and said, look, if the team is really large, it slows down productivity. So let's create a rule and say any team that is larger than what, than a size that two pizza can feed is too large. So if you buy, 2 packs of pizza and it can't feed everybody on the team, then that team is too large. It should be smaller. So usually you had 4 to 5 people on the team, max 6, because the moment you become 8 or 10, you can't 2 packs of pizza can't feed you anymore. So he created the 2 pizza rule and said, let's create smaller teams so that smaller teams can work, together. They can solve problem on time, they can troubleshoot on time, and they can move faster. That alone gave them advantage of productivity, because Microsoft already had all this advantage. But the thing is this, the way Microsoft was structured was bureaucratic. So when you write a code, the code has to be vetted by almost 3 different people before it is tested and all that. Before you know it, 6 months you are there, you've not shipped the feature. Whereas in a small team, you ship a feature, you build a code today, by next week you get feedback from your teammates, in 3 weeks the feature is shipped. And so what happened is that productivity now grew. So you need to look at it and say, how can I structure my team? Who are the people that are supposed to be on this team to be able to build a sustainable business and to be able to build an high growth business? So let me give you a classic example. When you're starting a technology company, there are 3 people that are really critical, and Americans invented this business model and this way of thinking. It's called the hacker, hipster, and gangster. The hacker is the person that writes the code. The hipster is the person that goes out marketing. The gangster is the guy that pulls weight, like the CEO that enters places, go and knock on doors, talk to investors, give us money. What's happening? So that's what the gangster is. Now, they figure that if you have a combination of somebody who builds the technology and somebody who markets what is built and somebody who coordinates everybody and makes sure that things work, the company is more likely to succeed. So, whereas if you didn't have that idea, you as the person building the technology, you just believe in your head that if you finish building the technology will sell. Not having that hipster is going to hurt you. Not having the gangster is going to hurt you, but you don't know. So businesses fail sometimes because of the structure of their team and because of how they communicate with their team. When you lack proper team communication, it can make a team fail. So what do you need to tell your team members, and what do you need to tell your investors to motivate them? Let me give an example. So within my own technology business, what I did is I have a leadership method where I use what is called a catchphrase. I tell them, I give the team a catchphrase and say, this is what we're doing in the next 2 or 3 months. Okay, and this is our focus. Okay, so there was a time our catchphrase was delight customers. Okay, and when I sent that message to the team, everybody caught the fire, and all we're thinking about is how can we delight our customers. The UI UX designers were thinking about how to delight customers. Customer service was about how do we delight customers. If anything went wrong, the engineers came and said, this one will not make our customers delighted. Let's quickly fix it. It rallied everybody around the goal. Now, what we're doing is we're doing something called from caretakers to game changers, right? And we've said, look, we've been caretakers long enough. We want to become game changers. And now that is empowering the minds of the people and say, look, how can we become game changers? What marketing campaigns do we need to do? What do we need to change the game? So knowing how to communicate with your team is something very critical. External communication is how do we spread these ideas? And one of the things you need to figure out as an entrepreneur is mainstreaming. And I want you to write this down. If this is the only thing you take out today, please note mainstreaming. That is, how can I weave in my idea into what is already existing? Because sometimes you can't take out the market overnight. You have to mainstream your idea. How can I get my idea to go around, around what is already existing? So let me give you a classic example. Someone spoke to me, said he wrote a book, he wrote the Nigerian Constitution and wrote it in different languages, and he's looking for a way to get that stuff everywhere. And I said, look, plug your Constitution into public places. There's a new railway launching in Lagos. The federal government has launched a railway from Lagos to Ibadan and Lagos to Abeokuta. Your Constitution, the hard copy should be on the train. You need to go and put it there so that people can go on the train. So find people who sponsor copies and put on the train. Let me give you something that the Gideon, there's an organization called the Gideons. What they do, the Gideons take Bible and place Bibles in hotels. That's their mission. They put Bibles in public places. So Gideon, they buy Bibles, like millions of copies, and go to hotels and say, let us give you Bibles, brand new Bibles, free of charge. Of course, hotels want that. They say, go and put it there. So that is their own mission. It is called mainstreaming. So they don't need to come on Facebook and come and be doing advertisement. They already have lots of hotels, and they can keep changing, the Bibles and making it fresh to make sure that the word of God enters into those places. So question is, how do you mainstream your idea? When you build this unique technology, how can you plug it into what people are already using to make their lives easier? WhatsApp is a good example of mainstreaming. They plugged it into the mobile phone. So think about how to do that. The second thing I want to talk about under messaging is how do you communicate these ideas for people to understand? And one easy way to do that, because when an idea is new, sometimes the reason why that idea fails is because people don't even understand it. And so what you find out is that communication becomes very critical and very powerful. And the method of doing this that most CEOs have found is that when you speak, liken your solution into what people already know. So let me give you an instance. If I tell you that this bread is a fantastic bread, I want you to eat it, it's very delicious. That sounds nice. But if I say this bread is as fluffy as as cotton wool in your mouth, you can sort of imagine how cotton wool being in mouth. Okay, that's all. So when people can imagine something, it makes the message stick. So good CEOs like the Airbnb, the Tesla, the Ubers, they have very strong ways of communicating the idea in such a way that people can understand. And so think about that. And if you put this together, if you find your market, right? If you find a method, and let me say this quickly on the markets, right? On markets, sometimes the method you have is not for the market you are building it in. So sometimes you need to find the markets that need your method. Okay? Some markets are already structured in a certain way that is rigged against your idea, the way you are implementing it. And see, how can I plug in my idea into a market that needs it the most? So as an entrepreneur, if your idea is not working for market women, why not take it to young graduates? If it's not working for young graduates, why not take it to a different market segment? Think about that. So if you look at it, if you find a unique method and find the markets that wants it and communicate it in a very powerful way, you're most likely to succeed and build something really meaningful. Thank you.